What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Part of what we both want is the same. We want more powers for Quebec in immigration because only Quebec should administrate this issue for Quebecers and make sure that immigration is successful. We want the same thing, but he wants to beat Mr. Saint-Pierre Plamondon, and I don't. So this is where the difference lies, basically. And if he is patient, a few weeks, maybe Santa Claus will come and give him an election.
Gotta love you, Francois Blanchette. All right, James MENNIE is on the line over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, the separatists are fighting today. They're fighting today. What's going on here?
You know, it's a weird day when the head of the Bloc Québécois sounds like the most Churchillian statesman of the entire lot. But as I mentioned in my schedule, you know, usually when Francois Legault wants to divert attention from his problems, he tries and changes the channel. Today, he smashed the remote control. At first, when I saw his statement, the first reports of his statement, calling upon the PQ to ask the Bloc to bring down the Trudeau government, I thought it was either a hoax or somebody got something horribly wrong. But no, it was true. And you listen to Francois Legault, or you can even read. There's such a plaintive note in his statement. You know, go get your friend at the PQ to go tell your friend the Bloc to go bring down a government because I can't do anything with these guys, blah, 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 blah. Of all the bizarre statements I've ever heard Francois Legault make, and at the end of it, as we've established, you know, the government is not going to fall. The Bloc is going to support it or oppose or won't support the ridiculous motion by the Tories, as will the NDP. And the only person that comes out of this with more than a lot of egg on his face, Aaron, is Legault, because I'm sorry, there's no other way to describe it. He comes across as being weak. He comes across as being unable to get things done, and he has had to fall back. It's almost like, well, it's not my fault I can't get anything done. It's stupid Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon and stupid Bloc Québécois friends. And in fact, it was so funny because here's Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon saying, let me get this straight. The Premier of Quebec wants me to succeed where he has failed. And even at the end of it, even if they gave him what he wanted, what in the hell will a Poilievre government have to do with the likes of Francois Legault or Quebec? If they win a huge majority, it'll be zero thanks to this province. And in fact, Francois Legault's whatever leverage he still has would be non-existent. So a very, very bizarre chapter in the ongoing saga of Francois Legault's political career. But I got to tell you, I think there's more than a few people, and not just in the separatist parties, and you're quite right. You know, this idea where they used to speak with, or appear to speak with one voice, they are sniping at each other big time. But right now, I don't think there is a public or private sector player who is involved with the Quebec government who's looking at Francois Legault in quite the same way as they did yesterday.
But let me ask the question, what would have spurred Francois Legault to just suddenly today come out and basically tell Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon? I know he's trying to obviously fight back against the PQ. Why today, Jim? He brought up immigration sort of as the issue when it's not even being talked about today.
I know. And the thing is, you know, sometimes I can't, you're asking me to a certain extent to be a psychoanalyst, so I can't, because there is no logic to this. You're quite right. There's nothing to have triggered this. There's nothing to have turned around. And even the problem he's complaining about would not be solved by what he was asking for. However, in the past, we have seen Francois Legault has had, how can I put it, episodes of frustration where he's said or done things that don't seem to make any sense. Right off the bat, I remember him just turning around and calling Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois an anarchist or suggesting that people who didn't agree with him were not good Quebecers. I mean, I don't know if we're in that territory yet. I also think perhaps Francois Legault knows a little more about the internal workings of his party and why they aren't working than we do. Let's face it, the departure of M. Chassin last week and the possibility of more departures coming down the pike do not bode well for the CAQ's future. As I keep saying rather exhaustively, we've still got about 2 more years of these guys But the fact is, I'm not really sure the CAQ's going to last that long. I'm not sure Francois Legault is going to last that long. Clearly, though, he's having tremendous difficulty furthering his agenda. And I don't know if you saw that little piece of icing on the cake that broke thanks to the Parti Québécois with their access to information requests. Here's Francois Legault. And I have cited him on many occasions saying, part of my job as premier is to get these good, high-paying jobs, les jobs payants pour les Québécois. And it turns out that Investissement Québec, which is a branch of the economy ministry, was touting Quebec as a good place for battery sector investors. Because why? Because the labor costs were so cheap. Because your Quebec worker is getting about 14% less than their equivalent on the eastern seaboard of the United States. So, it's, as they like to say, it's one damn thing after another for Francois Legault. As far as I'm concerned, it couldn't be happening to a nicer guy. But like I say, he's theoretically still here for another 2 years. Who knows what tomorrow will bring?
All right, let's get the focus back to Pablo Rodriguez for a second, because that was the big news till this all started happening, and the fact that, and as yes, we've all said, worst kept secret in a long time. What is this? First of all, with respect to the federal Liberals, I mean, there was no time wasted in giving Anita Anand his transportation portfolio and giving Jean-Yves Duclos his Quebec Lieutenant portfolio. Does this make him the shoe-in to? I know it's early, Jim. Does this give him, let's say, then an advantage now that he's put his name in as the next provincial Liberal leader here?
Well, as long as we keep breathlessly talking about his candidacy, it does. But the other question is, sooner or later, he's going to have a sit down. Sooner or later, he's going to have to point out where he stands. And, as we have realized on this show on many occasions, there is a world of difference between theory and practice. Pablo Rodriguez would face the same challenges as any other potential leader of the Quebec Liberal Party, is rebuilding a party that has basically been reduced to the West Island and little tiny pieces of the island of Montreal and the Outaouais, a little chunk of the Outaouais. It used to have an entire network out in the regions. Can Pablo Rodriguez bring that back? Can he breathe life into the rank and file? I don't give a damn. The caucus seems to be happy with his arrival. The Quebec Liberal caucus seems to be happy. But in the end, their opinion is completely irrelevant. What he has to do is inspire the rank and file. What he has to do is turn around and say, with me, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. I'm going to be as much a premier for the people in the west side of Montreal as the people out in Rivière-du-Loup, as the people up in Saguenay, as the people in the Sons de Quebec. But that said, it's going to be a huge job for him to do. And perhaps he'll benefit from the fact that the CAQ is increasingly in disarray. But you know what, Aaron? It's kind of funny because on the one hand, you and I are saying, look, all the separatists are nattering each other. But they really seem to be gaining, especially after episodes like today, they really seem to be gaining a kind of political gravitas. In other words, these men and women look as if they're destined to be running things. I'm not saying about a sovereignty referendum, but it looks like they may be on their way to power. It's far more likely to imagine them in power than it is, say, the Liberals or certainly Quebec Solidaire, or indeed the CAQ itself. So I mean, he's got a lot on his plate. Let's as we say, let's give a chance to the runner. Let's let him get his stuff together. I think his maintaining his seat as an independent will be costly. I frankly think he's doing it to as a favor to his old boss, not to be in the Liberal caucus, the federal Liberal caucus, because the federal Liberals are not very let's say their currency is not very high in Quebec, even with Quebec Liberals. But on the other hand, I think he's sparing Justin Trudeau the possibility of a by-election. He's saying he'll leave in January. I foresee him perhaps waiting until the leadership gets settled in June. So that way, if he does leave one way or another, Trudeau won't have to call a by-election because we're going to have a general election that October.
Right. All right, Jim, to do with none of this, the question I asked today, I just wanted to give me a quick take on this. The mayor last week, I guess it's almost 2 weeks ago, her administration deciding to basically close the comment section on anything she posts on social media, or at least on X. And I wonder what you thought of this. I'm saying, is this the right thing to do? Is this the wrong thing to do? You have a thought on this?
Absolutely. I know Ensemble Montreal are beating their chests over this. It's really gone too far. If you feel that strongly about something at City Hall, go down to City Hall, ask questions, make your comments there. But enough with the hate, enough with the misogyny, enough with the racism, enough with every freak. And you know, and I know, and I think most of our listeners know, that 90% of those comments are not coming from Montrealers, okay? It's coming from some clown out in the regions or out in the burbs or out in the West Island who's just got a chip on his or her shoulder about Montreal in general and figures they can say or do whatever they want because they're online with about 15 different aliases. No, and I don't think that my tax dollars, I'm not in Montreal anymore, but I'm still, Quebec still pays into the pot. I don't think my tax money should be spent paying someone to vet through all of these messages. You got to stand up, say it with your name, say it behind your face, even if you have to do it. I mean, do it as a Zoom call. I don't care. Technology can catch up. But this idea of allowing anonymous comments, this idea of allowing people with a virtual can of spray paint writing FU over and over and over again on someone's wall, to me, is very counterproductive.
James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adama.